Okay, this is the Gift of Gabs show. This is episode 8. I have a guest today, Jamie Richey, who is going to talk to us about October being World Blindness Awareness Month and a little bit about her background in the national federation and the state chapters. So, uh, Jamie, welcome. I appreciate you doing this.
Yes, thank you, Gary, for having me.
So, and we timed it this way so that I could release it for October. And I'll be honest, I other than a little bit of research that I've done online, I didn't know that it was World Blindness Awareness Month. And when you first mentioned it to me, I thought it was just a USA thing, but
Mhm.
obviously that's not true. So, can you talk about what that does for the blind community to have that month designated?
Yes, absolutely. So, in the National Federation of the Blind, which I'm a member of, we call it Blindness or Blind Equality Achievement Month, or BEAM for short, and it gives us a month to um, teach the public about blindness, to celebrate our accomplishments, to celebrate our history, and just get out there among the communities and let people know that blindness is not something that holds us back, and that we're able to do anything that everybody else is able to do except for drive, of course.
Yeah. Yeah, and your husband Jeremy is also blind, or is he limited?
Nope, he is blind as well. Yep, that's
Okay.
correct.
I can tell people we've known each other for a couple of years, and you said that it doesn't stop you from doing things that everybody else does. You went to the Nebraska football game last and
Yep,
that was their 400th sellout, I think. Uh,
yep.
so, so were you? I'm not sure how to ask you this. Were you blind from birth, or did you lose your sight?
Yep, no problem. That's a good question. So I actually got pink eye when I was 10 and took some medication for it. Turned out I was allergic to. So I
Oh,
went blind at the age of 12. So pretty much most of my life now for 40, well, 30 years, I guess,
yeah,
I've been blind. So it's just a part of who I am. And um, I've done the training to learn all the skills of blindness. So it doesn't stop me from doing anything. Jeremy and I, as you know, Gary, have
right.
four grown kids and two grandchildren that we adore and spend a lot of time with.
Yeah, yeah. So Lincoln, I wasn't aware of this actually until I think the people that have listened to shows before know that once in a while I'll drive on Lyft, and that's how I met you and Jeremy. And I didn't realize that there was a pretty active chapter and a lot of services available for blind in Lincoln. Uh,
Mhm.
is the how active is the Lincoln chapter?
So it's probably our most active chapter in Nebraska, and mainly because a lot of the blind people come to Lincoln for training. That training I had talked about at the Center for the Blind, and so they end up staying here in Lincoln because they came for the training and then also the transportation and some of the other opportunities available here in Lincoln. So the chapter is pretty active. So within the National Federation of the Blind, we have our state affiliates. So in Nebraska, we have the state affiliate and then we have chapters, and those chapters are typically located within cities. So Lincoln and Omaha both have a chapter, and then we have a greater at-large chapter, which is the people that don't live in Lincoln and Omaha, so across the state, they do their meetings via Zoom.
Yeah, I spent 16 years in Northwest Nebraska in Chadron, and the general feeling out there was Lincoln, Omaha, and then there's the rest of us.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
oh,
I grew up in the panhandle of Nebraska, so I know exactly what you
yeah,
mean.
yeah. It always seemed funny to me that they would say, "Well, this year we're going to have our." I taught at college there, and they would have state conferences, and they'd say, "We're going to put it in the middle of the state, and we're going to have it in Grand Island," which was
Yeah,
still like 350 miles away for us. So I don't know about where you were. Where I was in Chadron, there used to be talk about we should secede and become part of Wyoming because
Hmm.
we're not being noticed or something. So
Yep.
uh, and that's a little bit of news to me that there's chapters and then the state. I sort of looked at the state as a chapter, but maybe of the
Hmm.
National Federation. So, oh,
Yeah, we call them affiliates. So there are 52 affiliates within the National Federation of the Blind. And so it is all 50 states plus District of Columbia and Puerto Rico.
okay, okay.
Hmm.
Both of those probably should be states anyway.
Right. And I actually get the opportunity to go to Washington, D.C.'s state convention coming up next month because I'm on the board of directors for the National Federation of the Blind. So we attend other state affiliates conventions um,
Okay,
to spread the word about what's happening across the nation, and then just to be there to help the affiliate grow and provide information.
all right. So you're on the board of the National Federation. How does that start? Did you start by being on the board of the state?
Yes, yeah. Since I'm the president of the state affiliate, I was just elected to the national board this past July. So the national board consists of members from across the state, typically that are presidents of their affiliates, but not always. Um, and so I was just, like I said, elected in July. So it's been a great opportunity to hold that position so far, and I'm excited to see what's going to happen in the future. I'll get to do some more traveling and then attend some meetings in Baltimore, where our headquarters is.
Okay. So when you're elected to the board, how long is the term?
So we don't have term limits within the federation, but we do hold elections every 2 years.
Okay. So do I don't know if you've met the other people on the board yet. Have they been there a long time or?
Yes, several of them have been there for quite a few years. A couple of the people that just stepped down this past year, because they're either no longer serving as state presidents or are wanting to move on to other things and let other people step up. They had been on the board for 20 plus years.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how let me lose my train of thought for a second. How do you is 2 years long enough, you think, to learn the position?
Oh no. I think 2 years probably just kind of scratches the surface.
Mhm.
That's why a lot of people do stay on. Um, So we don't tend to have a lot of turnover. Sometimes within the states you do, depending on how involved your state is. But even here in Nebraska, I became the state president back in 2022, but our previous president had been there for let's see, 21 years.
Wow.
So yeah, there's if you have a real solid affiliate and members that stick around, then there's not a lot of turnover.
So does the former president or do they offer you assistance even after they leave or I
Yes.
mean as far as the job goes?
Yeah, that's the ideal thing anyways. And it just so happens that the former president of Nebraska is my best friend. So so
Oh,
it's
okay.
pretty easy,
Okay.
to get some advice from her and but yeah, that's the ideal thing is to have that president kind of even set in as um the oh, I forget what the name of it is. The president that was the former president, there's a name for that, and I can't think of it. But
Oh,
they sit in on board
emeritus
meetings.
or is it?
Yeah, there you go, emeritus. Yeah, president emeritus. Yep.
Okay.
So they sit in on board meetings and things like that, and kind of help guide things in your first year or two, so that you know what's going on and how to handle things.
One of the things that has surprised me is whenever I meet someone in Lincoln who's blind, I mention you and Jeremy or Brad and Barb, and it seems like everybody knows each other. Is that is that true, or am I just getting a kind of a weird sample?
Yeah, it seems to happen a lot. They people do kind of have that misconception that all blind people know all blind people, but
Hmm.
of course that's not true. But it depends on the people that are the ones that are getting out and about. They do seem to know each other more often
Hmm.
because we are, out and about doing things and we see them at different events or we see them on the bus or
Right,
things like that. And so those people that you're picking up in Lyft, of course, are the ones that are getting out and about. And so those are the
right,
ones that we happen to know.
right.
Um, and in Lincoln, um, the National Federation of the Blind is the major blindness organization. And so if people are involved in any blindness organization, typically it is the National Federation of the Blind. And so um, that's how they know a lot of us. There is another organization for the blind called the American Council of the Blind, but they're not as active in Lincoln. They do have a chapter up in Omaha.
Okay. So is part of the National Federation's job to, I looked on the website and it talked about education
Mhm.
opportunities. Is part of that also to educate the non-blind people, or do they stay within
Yes, so
their
that's a
scope?
huge part of what we do is educating the public. Um, because there's so many misconceptions about blindness out there. And so one of the largest things we do is just educating teachers, educating parents, educating um, uh, anybody,
Right.
the lawmakers, Congress, all those. So educating, advocating. We do a lot of advocating for rights. Um, we talk with members of our Congress. We meet each year in Washington, D.C., and go to the Hill and talk to members there about different issues that we're facing. Um, Coming up on October 15th, which happens to be White Cane Awareness Day. So that celebrates
Okay.
the use of the long white cane. October 15th, we're going to have a rally in San Francisco in front of the Uber and Lyft headquarters because Uber and Lyft drivers are denying people with guide
Really?
dogs rides.
Really?
Yeah, yeah, it's been a big issue. We've been fighting with them for a long time, and nothing's being done about it. So,
See, that's supposed to be a requirement.
hmm
Not just guide dogs, but any kind of service dog.
right.
They're supposed to let you on. And
Hmm.
I actually had a guy one time say, is it okay if I bring my dog? And I said, well, I like dogs more than I like most people.
Yeah.
So you can bring your dog. He wasn't blind. He just wanted to bring his dog. It
Yeah.
wasn't a service dog. So I always do it. But I'm surprised to hear that people wouldn't
Hmm.
let you come in.
Oh,
That
yeah.
that brings up a question though for me is you don't have a dog. You use a cane, right?
Correct. Yep.
And it to me it feels like, and I've never been in that situation, but it feels like I'd want a dog.
Hmm.
But is it harder to get around with a dog or with a cane? Are they about the same?
So it's totally personal preference. I always used to joke and say if they came out with a seeing eye kitty, I'd be all over it because I love cats. Um, but it really is total personal preference. With a dog, you have to feed it, exercise it, take it out to the bathroom, all that kind of stuff. With my cane, I come home, I throw it in the corner, and I'm done. I don't have to take care of it. And so it really is just what you would like to do. There's no better can't really say that one's better than the other. Some
Right.
people would agree or would argue that a dog is better because it can get you through crowds and things like that a little easier, which is true. But at the same time, when I'm in a restaurant or on a cramped airplane or something like
Right.
that, I don't have to struggle to get my dog in a spot
Yeah.
where it's not going to get stepped on or uncomfortable. I just throw
Yeah.
my cane under the table. And so there's arguments for both, but it really is personal preference. Jeremy has honestly thought about getting a dog, but has never just never pulled the trigger on it.
Right.
Um, but I've always just wanted to have a king.
Yeah. I had when you said it helps you get through crowds, my first thought was if you had a seeing eye pit bull people would just get out of your way.
Yeah.
Like,
I think a seeing-eye monkey would be kind of neat, just
but yeah, and I guess I've probably had I don't know if it's a usual experience or different. I've taught for 41 years college classes, and I've only had one blind student. That seems way out of proportion to me. Is it?
Yeah, that is kind of rare, but at the same time, I guess it kind of depends on where you were teaching. So, like at the university here in Lincoln, there's going to be a higher population of blind people. And the
Right.
reason for that is it's a bigger university in a bigger town. So they do have more access to
Yeah.
things like transportation. And then also, a lot of times, the disability services offices on those campuses are better at the bigger universities.
Oh,
Um, so, like, I had looked at going to Chadron, for example. For teaching. And I took a tour there, and then I came down here to Lincoln and toured this campus. And this one just had so much more to offer
yeah.
for blind students for accessibility to get textbooks in audio or braille or different things like that. So I had chosen to come here instead.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's where I was, is in Chadron. But
Hmm.
the one student that I did have was in Lincoln. And so I wasn't, I didn't have much awareness of it at all, the presence that you have in Lincoln. Uh,
Hmm.
so you went to the state convention earlier this year, right?
Hmm. Yes.
Uh, how big is that? Did you help plan that convention, or did you just go as a participant, or?
No, our state convention, that's held every year, and it used to be in October actually, but it has now switched to the spring, and that is something that the president does plan. I have assistance in planning it, but I do a lot of the planning for that, and we try and do it across the state. So, like we were talking about earlier, trying to do it in the middle. No, like last year, we actually went clear out to Gearing. Um, so we do and try and involve people from across the state. Uh, Next year's convention will be at the end of March in Omaha, and it's we start on a Thursday evening, we end at noon on Sunday, and we get around 100 participants for the convention. And we talk about things going on in Nebraska as well as things going on nationally. We have representatives from the Talking Book and Braille Library, a service called Radio Talking Book, the Nebraska Commission for the Blind. They come and talk to us about things that they're doing within their organizations and agencies. Um, we'll have different vendors, different fun
Right.
activities, and presenters.
Yeah, it sounds a little bit like I used to go to conferences, like American Marketing Association conferences when I was teaching in
Mhm.
Chadron, and it was similar to that. With They did some sort of like educational little seminars, and then they did have vendors to show you what's new and what they're
Yep.
offering for
Yep.
the
Exactly.
next year. Is you said there's 100 normally at the convention. How big is the Lincoln chapter?
In the Lincoln chapter, we have around 30 members right
Okay.
now. So it's a little bit smaller than it used to be. And I think that, we're seeing that just across the country, whether it's in a blindness organization or other organizations, people just aren't getting involved as much as they used to. I think a lot of people have just other activities, or they stay home and don't want to get involved. And so our membership is down. Um, but we do people do like to come to like the state conventions, and you don't have to be a member to come to that, because they can get that information of what's new, maybe new technology or legislation, different things going on.
Okay. Okay. So when they leave or when they decide to maybe stop attending, is it because they feel like they've learned enough and they don't need the help, or is it they don't want to take the time?
Yeah,
Maybe.
maybe a little bit of both. They don't want to take the time. They feel like they don't need to be a part of an organization. They're doing fine on their own. I think there's a variety of reasons. Some people just get caught up in kind of other family events, maybe
Mhm.
their kids are in sports or things like that. Um, and they kind of come and go too. I mean, being a part of the organization, it's not like a huge commitment, and it's something where you can be a member one year and not a member the next year. Our dues are very reasonable. They're only $10 a year, so it's
Oh,
it's not a big hardship.
so does the National Federation have a separate dues?
No, so if you're a member of your state affiliate, then you're automatically a member of the national
Okay.
organization. And so we have the right to vote at our national conventions. And the national conventions are held in July of each year in different cities across the country. And so we had our last one in Orlando. And so being a member, you get to vote on different issues, you get to vote on elections and things like that. And it's like the state convention, only way bigger. There's about 3,000 people that attend that, and held. It's a week-long convention, and there's all kinds of meetings and activities during that.
Okay, so they have to hold those in cities that are used to handling conventions.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
you have to have a large hotel or convention center that can
right.
accommodate that many people.
So do they have like a set rotation of where they take the national convention?
No, it just really depends on the deals they can get. We've been to Orlando several times in the last decade just because of the deals they could get. We actually got the listings of where we're going to be for the next several years, which is kind of unusual. Usually we'll get maybe the next year or the year after, but they did announce that the next year will be in New Orleans, and then the next 2 years after that in Austin, and 2 years after that in Chicago. So
Oh,
we have a nice advance notice of where it's going to be.
yeah. Oh, that's good. When I think of those national conventions, and this is just me, I just think of Vegas and Orlando because those seem like the two places that have them a lot. I have been to one
Yep.
in New Orleans. I have been to one in New Orleans, but never in Austin. Austin's great though. That would be a fun place to have it.
Yeah, I haven't been to Austin. New Orleans, we had a convention there 2 years ago, and that was the first time I'd been there, and that was a lot of fun.
So it makes more sense than to have the state one in March if the national is in July, doesn't it?
Yeah, it kind of works out good because you can get people geared up for that national convention. Uh, Having the state convention in October was nice though too because you could get all the new information from the
Oh, that's
national
yeah.
convention and bring it back to the state convention. But um, with there being 52 affiliates, the state conventions are held throughout the entire year. Uh, of course, if we
Oh, okay.
if we did a different convention for each state on a different weekend, that would be every weekend of the year. So that's not possible.
Yeah.
But so they really are spread out throughout the
So how do
year.
you how do you get the information to the members now after the national? Do you wait until March? Or
Oh,
you,
no, no, we're in constant contact with our members. We send out emails. We try and do social media. The national office each month produces what we call the presidential release, where it's a recording of the president giving an updates of what's going on. And so we play that at our chapter meetings. Um, we have a publication called the Braille Monitor, and that's our flagship publication. It's a monthly magazine that's produced that has different articles about blind people, what they're experiencing, and just updates on what's going on. There is a podcast available as well. So there's lots of different avenues where we get information out to our members.
how hard is it to learn Braille? Is it just like any other foreign language or?
It is, the younger you are, of course, the quicker we pick things up. So when I learned Braille at age 12, I learned the actual code in 2 weeks. Um, but it just depends on how much how much work you put into it. Um,
Right.
since I had lost my sight pretty much overnight, I had to learn Braille if I wanted to go back to school. So I kind of had that incentive. So I learned it quickly. Now, I'm not as fast at reading Braille as some people because I didn't practice like I should. Um, I, I know some people who can read 400 words a minute in Braille. That's definitely not me.
Yeah, that's a
But
lot.
they've read Braille all of their lives and they continue to read Braille, and it's just a um part of what they do. And if I would practice more, I could definitely read faster, but I'd probably never get to that
Right.
400 level.
So you
I
said
wasn't a
you,
fast print reader, so I don't think I'd be a fast Braille reader.
so you said you learned the code in 2 weeks. So
Yes.
it isn't just like it isn't letters, it's like words, or is
Uh,
that
so the Braille, so we call it a code because it's not technically a language, because it's still English. It's just a
okay?
different way. Um, so Braille has the alphabet, A through Z. And then it has what we call contractions that are like the word the, for example, THE, instead of writing it out THE, there's just one symbol for
Oh,
that
okay.
because then it makes it less cumbersome. It's faster that way. Um, as it is, even with all those contractions, um, Braille takes about, for one print page, is about 3 Braille pages.
Okay.
So it
Okay.
takes up a lot of space, even with those contractions. But we have several of those contractions, about 300 of them, that help it at least and give a shortcut so that it's a little faster.
Yeah. I was my undergrad degrees in economics, and when you said one print page is 3 Braille pages, it made me think of Karl Marx. We had to read some of his, and what most people could say in a page, he would take 20 pages to say. And it wasn't easy reading. It wasn't much fun to read.
I
But
know some people like that.
yeah. Yeah. So does every state chapter, all 52, are they always all represented at the national convention?
We try and get representation from each of the affiliates. Yeah, each of the 52 affiliates. Some of the affiliates, such as North Dakota and Wyoming, don't have a very big affiliate. So it depends on what's going on, who's the president, if they do have a president. Those There's such um, densely populated states that they don't have a lot of blind people that are involved in the organization. So sometimes there might be 1 or 2 states that aren't represented at the convention, but most of the time we try and get at least all 52. And then also we have a lot of international people that come to our convention.
So this is a little off script, but how has technology changed the things? I mean, when you go to the conventions, I'm assuming vendors have new things that they
Mhm.
want to show you. Has that had a big impact?
Yes, technology has definitely had a big impact on the blindness community. It's it has opened up a lot of doors for us, but at the same time, it's also caused a lot of issues for us. Um, so take the iPhone, for example. You can buy an iPhone off the shelf right now, and it has what's called voiceover on it. So that's what allows us to use our phones. It reads everything on the screen, which
Okay.
is fantastic. I can go out to my local store, buy an Apple phone, and it's totally accessible. Well, the problem becomes that different apps and websites are not accessible. So people don't build in accessibility in their apps and
Oh,
websites.
okay. Okay.
And so you might pay for an app, download it, and then come to find out it doesn't work with our screen reader.
Right.
So that's actually one of the things we're trying to change within legislation, is to make a guideline, where not a guideline, but a policy where you have to have these things be accessible.
So we'd
Um,
be we'd be like part of the Disabilities Act that provides access.
yes, the Americans with Disabilities Act. Yep.
Yeah.
That they have to make that stuff accessible.
I know I taught 20 years ago, I taught at a college in Kansas, And the building I was in was an old building, and we were on the fourth floor, and there was no elevator, there was no, ramps or anything.
Hmm.
So if we had students in our classes that had any kind of a disability, we had to move the class to either another building or, first floor, somewhere where they would have access. So I could see how that would be sort of similar in terms of problems. So,
Right, right. And and thankfully a lot of buildings and things like that, are more accessible these days. Um, but when it comes to things like websites, people don't think, that it needs to be
right.
coded a certain way. I'm not a coder, so I don't know how it works, but they tell me anyways that it's a pretty
Yeah.
simple process. Actually, they just have to change things a certain way to make it accessible. But it's just one of those things, and it's not that people don't care, they just don't realize it.
Right.
Um, and so just getting them to realize and then to make those
So
changes.
is Apple the only phone company that does that, or?
No, actually, Android has the same thing. It's not the same thing, but they do have a thing on their phone too. It's called TalkBack, and it reads everything on the screen as well. Apple was the first to do it, and it's kind of more advanced than the TalkBack through Android, but it is starting to catch up.
Okay, because I've been around you when you've gotten messages on your phone, and you're playing them super fast. And
Yeah. We also have the screen readers on our computers. That's a separate program. It doesn't come with the computer. Um, it's a separate program that we have purchased that we put on our computer. So it reads everything on the screen. And since we've been doing that for so long, we increase the speed so that we can read things faster. And so the same, it works the same on the phone. We've increased the speed of it so it can read back to us faster, and
right,
we've just gotten used to it. Um, in fact, our
because
children, when they're around, they can understand usually our phones and stuff because they had been around them for so long. So
oh
you
yeah,
just
I
get
guess
used to
that
it.
would I could see that. I mean, when I've heard it, I'm amazed that you can understand
Yeah.
what they're saying. I thought that would have to take a lot of practice. Like when I listen to audiobooks, I speed them up a little bit, but nothing
Mhm.
like what you're doing on there. And I
Yeah.
guess
And
I guess if I was paranoid, I would feel like they were telling you something about me, and I didn't understand what they were. But no,
yeah.
that's
I-
impressive to me that you can do that. But
mhm.
is the text voice to text thing pretty accurate? Because I know when I try to do text messages with voice, it sometimes changes what I said. Does
Yes.
that there too?
Yeah, so the dictation feature is the exact same thing that you have on that you use on your phone.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, dictation is definitely one of those interesting things. It's nice because it's quick and easy, but at the same time, sometimes you spend more time editing what it put in than you
Yeah,
would have if you just
yeah,
typed it out. Um, I do a little bit of both. Typing is not as fast as what a sighted person can do, but you can get pretty quick at typing
uh-huh,
um, on the phone using the
yeah,
voiceover. Um, so some people just prefer to use the dictation because it is quicker, but you do
right,
have to watch out for what it puts in there, and especially some of the words it thinks you need to have in there, which is not
yeah.
necessary.
Typing's probably as fast as I can type. I never learned how to type. I'm always amazed though when I see kids, high school kids or something, texting people on their phone, and sometimes
Mhm.
they're doing it without looking at the phone, like they just know where all the letters are.
Right, right.
So that that's always that impresses me. So
Mhm.
I don't want to keep you too long. So the if people want more information, where would they find it, or where can they go?
Yeah, so our national website is just N as in national, F as in federation, B as in blind.org. So nfb.org. That's our national website that has just a ton of information, resources, publications. If you know somebody who needs a long white cane, you can get one for free. So there's a lot of different things you can get on our national website. Our local website is it's the same nfb.org, except for it has NE in the front. So it's NE
Okay,
for Nebraska .nfb.org. And
okay,
that's our state website that we where we have our local events and things that are happening locally.
okay. I'll try to put those up on our website so people can
Okay.
check it. Um, I did have a
Mhm.
few questions that I wanted to run by you at the end that I've done with most of the people. Uh,
Mhm.
I realized after the first 2 or 3 episodes that it might be a good idea to let people know what these questions are. So, because sometimes they don't have an answer, uh,
Mhm.
but let's run through those and then we can wrap it up. First one is if you could spend a day with anybody, living or dead, who would you pick or why?
So I'm gonna give two answers, and I know I'm not supposed to do that, but
Oh, it's okay.
one's personal, one's professional. So, personally, it would be my grandpa. He passed away in 2020, and it would be great to spend one more day with him. And before he got sick, and towards
Right.
the end, he wasn't able to speak real well, and so just to spend some time with him and talk more with him about his um his childhood and things like that, I
Uh-huh.
think would be really awesome. Um, but professionally, when we're talking about the National Federation of the Blind, uh, Dr. Kenneth Jernigan was the second president of the National Federation of the Blind, and he had served in the 70s and 80s, and just an incredible man. He wrote a lot of publications, very intelligent. He was from Tennessee, grew up on a small farm there. And so I think it would be really neat to sit down with him and just ask some questions because he
Yeah.
sounded like a really awesome man. I didn't get a chance to meet him. He passed away in 99, and I joined the Federation in 2000.
Oh, okay. So it started in 1970?
It actually started in 1940 was when the National Federation of the Blind was founded. Uh, Dr. Jacobus Timbrook was our founder, and he got together with a group of people from 7 other states and decided that they wanted to create this organization so that they could have a voice in the blindness movement.
Okay. So then did the state affiliates start
Yeah,
pretty soon after?
our state affiliate was started in 1970 then. So
Okay,
it, yep.
okay. Second question is if you could be any animal, what would you be?
Hands down, it would be a kitty cat. I say that all the time. I wish I was a cat. I love to lay in the sun. I love to take naps. The only thing that doesn't work for me being a cat is I don't like fish. And I know cats like fish. So
Yeah,
that wouldn't work for me. But everything else, yeah, I'd love to be a kitty cat.
yeah, I have had two cats for a long time. One of them actually passed away a couple of weeks ago, but
Yeah, that's what
they
you were saying.
didn't,
Super
they
sad.
don't, neither one of them, I like salmon. I eat salmon a lot and they won't eat that. Uh, it's weird.
My cat doesn't like the fish flavored stuff either,
Yeah.
the food and stuff. So I guess she takes after me, and so yeah, it works.
Yeah. Third one is what's the most interesting place you visited or would like to visit? Or maybe one of both.
Um, so this last summer, before the convention in Orlando, Jeremy and I spent 4 days at New Smyrna Beach there in
Uh-huh.
Florida, um, on the beach, and that was just amazing. So that's probably the most interesting. We walked around the town and it was just the two of us. It was just a really neat time. But I would really like to visit another country to see how they live and their culture, especially a place like an Ireland or Sweden, where my ancestors are from,
Uh-huh.
something like that, I think would be really cool.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and it'd be interesting to see what the differences are in how blind people are treated or kind of
Absolutely.
organizations they have and that kind of stuff.
Yep.
Ireland's definitely high on my list. I've been to England, Scotland, France, Morocco, and I grew up in Michigan, so I've been to Canada, but that's like going to Council Bluffs from New.
Yeah.
That was a big deal. The next one is if you had to eat one food every day for the rest of your life, what would you eat?
Pizza.
Well, that's a
And
good choice because you can change it up a little bit.
yeah, and it has all the food groups, you know. You got your meat, your veggies, tomatoes are considered a fruit. You got your grain and your dairy. So yeah, I would definitely go with pizza.
I love pizza, but and I could probably do that every day. I don't know if I have enough variety in what I eat, but
Yeah, you'd probably get sick of it for sure, but I
yeah.
definitely love my pizza.
Last question, and I'll let you go, is if you could start a rumor about yourself, what would it be?
That one's a little bit harder because I don't like people talking about me, but I think I'd probably say start a rumor that, well, I was going to say start a rumor that I'm a billionaire, but then a bunch of people would probably bug me for money. So maybe I
Yeah,
don't want that.
yeah, you definitely. You hear horror stories about people winning the lottery and everybody coming out of the woodwork to be
Yeah, all of a sudden you have a
family and
lot of
friends.
relatives you never knew you had.
Yeah, you get some that kind of stuff weird. That I had a friend that played in the NFL for 9 years, and he got a letter one time when they were going to the Super Bowl.
Uh-huh.
He got a letter from somebody that was in a camp with him when they were 8 years old. And he didn't even remember who the guy was, but the guy wanted Super Bowl tickets.
Oh my gosh, that's
And
funny.
so I don't know. I don't know what the answer was. I know he didn't give him tickets,
Yeah.
but but I that's really weird that somebody would. And
Yeah.
the other thing that I thought was weird is how did he even know how to reach him? Like
Right.
he didn't have his phone number or address or something. So that was a little bit
Hmm.
scary, that part of it, that they could find you. Uh,
Yeah, it's crazy.
well, I really appreciate you doing this. And I mean, I learned some things today that I didn't know. So hopefully other people will too.
Hmm.
And I appreciate the time. I'm gonna let you go so I don't tie
Okay.
up all of your day. But thanks a lot for doing this. It was fun.
Well, thank you, Gary. I appreciate you having me on. And the main takeaway from this is that I want people just to know that blindness is not what holds you back, and that we can live the life that we want.
Yeah. Well, you guys prove that to me all the time when I take Jeremy for jujitsu lessons and stuff like that. So yeah, that's an important part of it. Thanks, Jamie.
Uh-huh. Thank you.
Bye.
Talk to you soon. Bye.